This gutsy physician treated all ailments, including the deadly Spanish influenza of 1918. Please welcome Dr. Susan Anderson.
Ma'am, it's Dave. Dave is all torn up from the barbed wire. He's hurt bad. Ma'am, I heard you were a doctor. Please help. Dave is all I got. That's what the young man said to me inside the general store in Fraser, Colorado. I had a dilemma. I didn't want anyone to know I was a doctor yet, not until I was well from the tuberculosis, and I needed more time to heal. But my Hippocratic oath gave me no choice. I ran home, picked up my medical bag, and followed the cowboy to a corral. "Where's Dave?" He pointed to a horse. It was common for country doctors to treat livestock, but I felt like a fool. Well, no matter, with help, I got that horse untangled and sewn up. After that, folks decided I was a good healer in spite of being a woman. I cured myself, and I saw patients all over Fraser and Middle Park. While I charged 25 cents for a house call, I rarely collected cash, but lots of firewood. 10 years later, in a single day, officials canceled church. They canceled school. They even had to forbid people from attending funerals. In 1918, the worst pandemic ever to hit this planet, Spanish influenza, arrived. No one knew what to do about this horrible disease, let alone this country physician. I am Susan Anderson, medical doctor. Some folks call me Doc Susie. Denver doctors told me about the Spanish influenza. Some said it originated in the trenches in France during the last months of the Great War. Some said it started in a military camp in Fort Riley, Kansas. It was a massive outbreak which began as a nasty cold that either got better in a few days or killed the patient. This flu often skipped the young and elderly, but sucked the life from robust adults in their 20s, including servicemen. While we won the Great War, Spanish influenza was the deadliest battle. I worked day and night going from house to house. So many needed my help, and if I could not get to them within 12 hours of onset, they often died. Bodies were everywhere, in houses, on roads, dumped in graveyards. I'd never felt so helpless. Now, doctors knew it spread by coughs and by simply breathing, especially in crowds, but no one knew how to cure it, not even the Surgeon General of the United States. His advice? Avoid wearing tight shoes and gloves. The Spanish flu disappeared as quickly as it came, simply vanished. In 16 months, it killed 50 million people around the world, from the United States to the South Sea Islands. With the invention of the electron microscope 2 decades later, scientists discovered a virus caused the disease. Never came back again. I saw many ways to prevent other diseases. I was often called to lumber camps to treat a malady, and while there, I gathered women and children for physical exams and administered smallpox and diphtheria vaccinations. Then I inspected the area, spotting poor health practices. Move that privy away from the creek. We don't want a typhoid epidemic here. Any good doctor knows an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I kept my medical bag stocked with standard supplies, including bundles of dressings that I boiled and ironed to kill bacteria, a dental kit, and surgical tools. On a typical day, I might stitch a laceration, pull a tooth, and deliver a baby on the kitchen table. When I could, I traveled by train to Colorado General Hospital in Denver for supplies and caught up on medical advances with university physicians. They knew I worked under primitive conditions without a laboratory or x-ray machine. I'm proud to say those Denver doctors considered me the best diagnostician on the Western Slope. However, it did not take a doctor to diagnose drunkenness. Banning booze would make my job easier. Many medical problems stem from alcohol abuse: seizures, beatings, gunshot wounds. Drinking alcohol ruined lives. I used it for one reason: to get my patients through surgery. Since I never stocked narcotics, I told many a wife, go ahead and give a little whiskey for the pain. So I was thrilled when Prohibition finally passed in 1920. Colorado had been dry for 4 years already, but most folks figured out how to get around it. One way was Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound, made from herbs and 20% alcohol. Advertisers claimed cures all women's ills, including a craving for alcohol. I told my patients, it's mostly liquor, throw it out. I don't think they heeded my advice. And local folks everywhere brewed their own hooch. I asked Sheriff Fletcher why he couldn't stop them. He said, if I arrested every moonshiner, all the men in Grand County would be in jail, including county officials and state legislators. Then who would vote for me? Fraser Valley became prime moonshine territory for Denver's crime bosses looking to make a profit. Everyone knew I hated those bootleggers. So the sheriff deputized me and included me on many raids. I'd grab my medical bag, my hat, and my axe, join up with the treasurymen and deputies in the forest. The sheriff would yell, you are all under arrest. And then I'd start. I loved smashing those stills. White lightning flew out of those barrels. Ha! Prohibition was an exciting time for me. I may have been a little eccentric since I never threw anything away. My house was full, but I created narrow paths through stacks of books, catalogs, and newspapers. I even hid my cash in those stacks. Eventually, I had little space for patients, no room for food, so I often dropped in at mealtime at people's homes whenever I felt like it. I did not eat much, and I liked to visit. Besides, it was a good way to collect on some bills. I heard Charlie Warner bagged himself an elk. Yum, hot elk stew tonight.